Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 4 for the PC. The game was released in 2021 for the PC and developed by Niho Falcom, Engine Software BV and PH3, and published by Nice America, and is the fourth and final chapter of this saga. Here's the game's details in the review. The game's story takes place right after the events of Cold Steel 3 and its climactic ending. Reen is missing and the war has gotten much worse than it was before. Things only get more depressing when you realise that Reen was actually being used during the final events of Cold Steel 3 in an attempt to awaken some type of curse which will destroy the world. Obviously, the game's plot does involve you to already be heavily invested in the franchise as it is, so it does expect you to have played Cold Steel 1, 2 and 3 before in order to understand what's going on here with this one. However, the game's story is much deeper than just knowing the past 3 other games, as it really does require you to have also played Trails in the Sky Saga and also the Crossbell ones as well. Really, you do need to do this in order to fully understand what is actually going on in the world around you, but also the people who also show up and the events which also take place. As I have already stated, this game does require you to already be heavily invested in the Trails of franchise. And this chapter really goes and drives that forward, because right at the very beginning of this game, you're introduced to Estelle, Joshua, Lloyd, and a few other characters who, unless you have played the Trails of the Sky or Crossbell games, you're going to be completely lost on who they are and just how important they will be to this game's story. All these characters from across the different sagas will have their parts to play within this game. Unless you have played the previous games before, then most of these surprise characters are just going to be lost on you, because you won't have any clue who they are, or anything which they have gone through to get where they are within this game. The cast of characters was already rather large as it was with this game, originally focusing on Class 7, the new Class 7 and some surprise characters, but also now the latest chapter really does expect you to have some knowledge of who these new characters are introduced into this game. It's great for fans of the lore, being able to see all these characters which they have met before in the past games all come together in this one for the final chapter. But for newcomers or for people who may just have played the Legends of Cold Steel Saga, this all might seem a bit much to keep track of on who's who and what they're from and what they're doing there. I'm sure if you're going to be buying Cold Steel 4, you will have at least played one of the past previous 3 games, and if so, then you'll already have some idea of what the gameplay mechanics are and how they work. And honestly, nothing really much has changed here. It's your traditional JRPG where you'll be exploring various locations, talking to people, doing quests, and slowly advancing the game's story. Combat is just like Cold Steel 3's, where it's separated into 2 categories. The first is where you'll be in a small group, working together to defeat hordes of enemies, and then the second is the mech combat system. When in the mechs, you'll be in a team of about 2 or 3, and you'll face off against giant beasts or even bigger mechs. For me personally, I do really enjoy both battle systems, but if I am being truly honest, I do feel a little bit giddy when in the mech fights, because they remind me of a game from long ago called Xenogears. Cold Steel 4's graphics have come a long way from the very first game, and with each game they've just gotten better each time. And this game is no exception, whether it be all the details on the mechs, all the details on each individual character's clothing, or all the small details placed around each city or location which you have visited before in the past previous games. They all stand out, and they all make you want to look at them. Everything here is beautifully well designed, created, and brought to life, and the game's story and its graphics work together perfectly to make this game stand out and show you just what it's capable of. In short, the game's graphics are a treat for the eyes, and I'm sure that you will not be disappointed. The game's locations are just as big and lavish as the previous installments, with you travelling all over the continent, trying to unveil the mystery placed before you. Just like with Cold Steel 3, you're going to be going back and doing some backtracking to past locations from the previous games. And just like what I said with Cold Steel 3's review, about you also backtracking in that to places within the second game, this is actually a good thing. You see, a big point about this game is that you're being shown the effects of war, and how it can either very quickly, or very slowly, change a location and its environments, and the mentality of the people around it. Some places will want to shy away from the war, and just how bad it is, and how bad it's gotten, and they'll simply just pretend that it isn't happening. So these places might not have changed much at all. Other places, however, might have fully taken the war effort to heart. Instead of a city being a hub for trade, business, or anything else, it could now just be full of tanks, mechs, and they're all ready and waiting for war. There are plenty of new wonderful locations for you to exploring within this game, but for me, it's the places that you've been to before which I like the most, because it really does show you how war can change not only people, but the places as well. The answer to this question is really a no-brainer, especially if you have been following the saga from the very first Cold Steel game. You have to get this game to find out how it all ends. What the huge mystery was that Osborn was keeping hidden all this time, where Rian's power stems from and its purpose, and so many more questions that just need answering. I have been a massive fan of this series since I played the first Cold Steel game, and how it won me over and made me fall in love with not just that game, but the others in the franchise. It made me want more, and I went on to play the Trials in the Sky saga to understand more about the events in this one. I then went on to play the Crossbow games, and they just opened so much more for me within this game and everything else. The Legend of Heroes is an amazing franchise, which has a serious amount of lore to it. And it's clear that when you put all of these games together, and how they all intertwine into this one and its final outcome, a huge amount of effort has gone into making this franchise what it is. I absolutely loved the Trials in the Sky saga, I also loved the Crossbell saga, and I loved the Cold Steel Saga too. I never would have thought that when I played the very first Cold Steel game, that it would somehow captivate me so much that I would go on to play all the other games, so that I could fully get the most out of these latest ones. I genuinely cannot recommend this game enough, but if you are planning on getting this one, then it really does require you to have played the others as well. And once you jump down that rabbit hole, you are going to want more. Well, that's it for this review, guys. Thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and please subscribe.